Welcome back to Nothing But the Truth. I'm Trudy Stern. And before we get to our featured interview with Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain, I want to take a moment to unpack the recent special elections. With so much at stake on the national stage, it's crucial to understand the implications of these results and what they mean for the road ahead. I'm pleased to welcome back our political strategist, Arie Lipnick. Arie has advised top campaigns, national political committees, and leading advocacy groups, earning a reputation as one of the sharpest political minds in the field. He brings deep experience, clear-eyed analysis, and a strong commitment to issues that matter. Today, he's here to break down the latest special election results in Florida and Wisconsin and what they could mean moving forward. Welcome, Arie.
Thank you, Trudy.
Okay, let's get right to it. So break down the Florida special elections for us.
Republicans held serve. There were two special elections, Florida 1, Florida 6, to fill the vacant Matt Gaetz and Walt seats. And Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine both won by north of 14 points in each race, despite having $20 million spent against them by by national Democratic groups.
So let's just break this down for a moment. So it sounds like great, they won by a lot. However, these were both districts that President Trump won by in excess of 30 points per district. So it is my understanding, and possibly all of our listeners, that the reason the question would be, obviously, why would the Dems put any money into races where they're going to lose anyway? But yet they put in $20 million. So could you explain that, why they would have done that?
Sure. So I think that this was the first opportunity for a lot of Democrats, not just in Florida, but anywhere around the country, really, to express their disappointment, their resistance, so to speak. So by donating to any of the Democrats running in the Florida special elections, it gave them an opportunity, even if they couldn't vote against the Trump agenda, to just be a part of that, opposition to the Trump agenda. And so that totaled, a lot of money that, from my perspective as a Republican operative, they should definitely keep on spending money in those races.
So I heard another perspective. So if you could just shed light on this, that money came in, the Soros type of money came in specifically with the goal of shrinking the amount of advantage that the Republicans have in those districts, and therefore leading it towards the midterms. Like, you shrink it from 30 to 12, and then in the midterms they invest another 20 million and they could shrink it to maybe even winning the seat. Is that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Like, I'm one of those people who thinks that special elections are snapshots in time. I don't think that they're bellwethers. I don't think that you look at a special election, particularly one in April of 2025, and can in any way, gain any insight into what the elections of November 2026 will look like. So, I mean, Randy Fine, for instance, in Florida 6, won his seat by the same exact margin that Ron DeSantis won that seat by the first time he ran for Congress. So the idea that, like, oh, Donald Trump won the district by 30, this is a 15-point underperformance, I think is just, it's selective. It's a selective look on what really happened in that election.
Tell us a little bit about Randy Fine. I know you have a very deep relationship with him. Tell us about him.
Randy Fine's nickname in Tallahassee was the Hebrew Hammer. He absolutely lives up to that reputation. He is a very proud Jewish Republican, a very proud conservative. He will, I think, do an amazing job in Washington. He's already been sworn in, and I can't wait for him to start voting.
So tell us a little bit about the balance of power in the House and what these two seats meant and why this was so important.
So there are 435 total voting members of the United States House of Representatives. Republicans right now have a majority of 220 to 213, with two vacant seats that belong to two Democrat reps who passed away. And I think the expectation is that those are going to remain Democrat seats as soon as those special elections take place. So you're looking at a 220 to 215 majority, which is to say that, Speaker Johnson can only afford to lose any two Republican members before he needs to start winning Democrat votes over to any legislation that's moving through the House. So it's a very tight margin that partly informed why President Trump asked Elise Stefanik to stay in the House rather than go to the UN. We're just dealing with very, very tight margins in the U.S. House today.
Um, Now let's look for just a second at the Wisconsin race for Supreme Court justice. So what do you think about that? Is that a bellwether for what people are thinking? Everyone on the news is making a big deal about the fact that this was a referendum against Musk because he came out so strongly. What do you think about that?
I think that it is a mistake to draw conclusions, certainly national conclusions, based on a judicial race in one state. And I'll give you an example. Another item on the ballot was ballot ID, voter ID. When you want to go in and vote, there was a referendum on should you actually have to have a picture ID. And that's largely considered, a conservative policy. That policy, that referendum, that ballot measure won more votes than the liberal justice did in that election. So I think that, Wisconsin in 2019, in 2020, in 2023, elected liberal justices by about the same margin as they did recently. And I just think that if we're drawing conclusions based on the fact that it was a really expensive race, sort of misses the fact that Wisconsin had a 4-3 liberal majority going into that election, and they walked out with a 4-3 liberal majority. Wisconsin just happens to elect liberal justices more often than not.
So you do not believe it was a referendum on the people feeling that Elon Musk was overreaching. You don't feel it was a statement about anything like that.
Again, when voter ID wins more votes than the Supreme Court, than the winning Supreme Court justice, I think it's very hard to say that this is a liberal backlash against any one person. This is just a state that sometimes votes like this, and more often than not votes this way.
That is very interesting because the newscasters on all of the news stations are making such a big deal about this and saying that this is an indication of, what people feel about the current administration. But I'm happy to hear that that is not how you believe, what you think, because here you will always get the truth. And we are so incredibly thankful that Nothing But the Truth has our own political analyst, Arie Lipnick, who is really able to get through all of the blur that we see and hear and really explain it like it is. Arie, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on and explaining all that for us. And always your insights help all of us cut through this noise that we hear and get to the heart of what these election results really mean. And we look forward to bringing you back as each important election happens, we look forward to hearing from you all about that. So thank you so much.